Hey, welcome to the Go-To Physio podcast. My name is Dave O'Sullivan, and in season 4, it's all about building a go-to clinic that gives you happy patients, happy staff, high profits, and the freedom as a proud go-to clinic owner. My aim is to share my mistakes and my successes over the last 15 years working in professional sport and private practice, and ultimately building a go-to clinic that's given me the freedom to travel all around the world. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Go-To Physio podcast. We are in season 4, which is all about building a go-to clinic that gives you happy patients, happy staff, high profits, and the freedom as a go-to clinic owner that has a business that sits proud in your community. And we're going to talk a lot more about freedom on this episode. And this episode is called From Burnout to Balance, building a go-to clinic that gives you true freedom. And as always, I'm joined with our head go-to clinic mastermind coach, Paddy Mulligan, a physiotherapist and clinic owner in Ireland. Paddy, great to have you with us today.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks very much, and appreciate anyone who had lots of people reach out, giving feedback on the podcast and asking questions and engaging. It seems to be striking a chord with people, maybe people who've kind of sat in the background and thought, okay, I can relate to that. So it's great to have people engaging. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it's really important to me, just like with everything that we put out, that's highly practical, okay? And from burnout to balance, and you made a little joke there just before we came on, what is balance, okay? And I think work-life balance, if I'm listening to that, if I'm putting myself in the reader's shoes, I'm thinking, oh, this is airy-fairy. So what I want to do today is I want to destruct that term balance. And I want to give you a roadmap to show you how to build freedom, okay? Because I think that's the big thing, is a lot of therapists, we hear all this rah-rah stuff on social media, but what are the actual clear things that need to happen in order to achieve true freedom, okay? And it's possible. Paddy, you have it. You can come over to us pretty much on demand. I can go away across the world to work with athletes for 2 weeks at the drop of a hat. That didn't happen by accident. That happened intentionally, okay? And it happened in processes. And there's 3 key components that we want to talk about today. If we can do it, and I mean that with the greatest respect to yourself as well, Paddy, I'm a physio from Cork. I wasn't smart enough to do physio in Ireland. I had to go to Carlow, had the best 2 years of my life, nearly lost my liver. Came to England, I failed my neurology exam in first year physio. I got a 2-1 degree, okay? I wasn't the smartest physio, okay? But what I done really well was, what I think I done really well was I got really dialed in on systems and structures to help me think and problem solve, okay? And if I can do it, then so can you, okay? Paddy, you were in England as well, weren't you?
I went to Carlow, Dave.
You went to Carlow as well, yeah, that's
2
right.
years. It was a formative experience. I found my wife. No, incredible. I think it highlights that sometimes, I'll call it a tougher road to get into physio, but if you're passionate, you want to get there. It highlights a work ethic, but also means you have to be maybe somewhat practically smart, where you go, here's the bits I identify that's really important for where I want to go to, and you zone in on them. Whereas I think that's a skill that I definitely learned. When I got into physio then, I was kind of clear on, here's the path I want to go, here's the skills that I need to have, here's the placements I need to do, and here's the stepping stones to get me into professional sport and then into the private practice world. And it kind of made me stop and think, rather than just kind of coasting through my university career.
Absolutely. And so let's get into it, Paddy, in terms of reverse engineering this process, okay? So we've got a brand new program, obviously, the Go-To Clinic business mentorship program. We've got a solo clinic owner pathway, okay, just for solo clinic owners, because obviously they've got slightly different problems. Definition of done in that program, you hire your first therapist, then you're going to move into the Go-To Clinic Mastermind program, because you're going to have a different set of problems once you have staff. So on that journey, there's 3 key components that we focus on inside the Go-To Clinic, business mentorship, and mastermind wings. And they are numbers, people, and systems. And we've talked a lot about those over the past episodes, but it keeps coming back to those 3 things. If you want freedom, you need numbers, you need people, you need systems. Paddy, is there anything to add there in terms of that before we start to dissect those in terms of how they're going to give therapists freedom, those three components?
I think we always reference it, and I can't leave it where it needs to come back to what success is for you and understanding that. So going back to your vision, but also understanding what success. So for me, success at the moment is the ability to have choices and the ability to choose where I go and what I do with my time, but also the ability to have quality time and to be present when I'm doing my work or be present with my family. So I think that's something that keeps me energized and driving towards it. And if there's periods of huge amount of work or overwhelm, I can reset and go, okay, well, hang on, this is worthwhile because I'm working towards this definition of success. So I think that's an important thing that we always emphasize, but it's always worth just reminding yourself. Sometimes when you get a little bit lost on the journey, reset your vision, what success is for you. And in fact, often we find that we're on our way. We just haven't put all the pieces together. It's the compound effect of putting the pieces in place. And that's what the mastermind and the support does is help you to align those pieces a lot quicker than you would just do by doing it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just as you're talking there, I think, reflecting on my last 15 odd years in business, I think the big thing that I'm really doing now is I'm looking for opportunities almost to delay gratification. And I think it's slowing it down a little bit to delay gratification, to build, as you said, the life that's going to be sustainable, as opposed to just so many quick fixes or quick things you can do in this day and age. But the second order consequences, and I hate it, and it absolutely humbles me. And I still see it to this day, where I do something, I make a choice in my business, either businesses, and then you see downstream the second order consequences. A couple of months later, you're like, shit, I've done it again. So it's never ending. It's evolving. But I think understanding where you want to get to, taking the most simple and direct path to get there, and then having that level of focus is absolutely massive, because it's never been as great risk to us that we just get distracted with all these shiny objects, and that could very, very quickly take us off track, which is what Paddy said. Where's your vision? What does your definition of success look like? And then we have to work back from there.
I think on that, Dave, the biggest thing we find is what are you doing with your time? Okay. We talk about the burnout or the overwhelm as the most common phrase that we've just completely overwhelmed. And how many hours I'm working? I'm doing 75, 80 hours a week. Okay. There may be occasions where that's required and you have to do that. But realistically, that's not sustainable. It's very difficult to make high quality decisions and high quality work for that amount of time. So it's a case of, what am I doing with my time? Have I got some sort of a plan or structure to my time? And do I understand what success is? And we often structure that by having a monthly plan or a quarterly plan or a yearly plan. And that's what we try and do, to give people structure so they understand that they've made a step forward in their journey, and actually celebrating that, because often the overwhelm comes from, you can go deeper on the psychological piece of this, but the overwhelm comes from, I've got so many things to do, I actually don't know where to start. So I'm doing loads of things, but none of it is actually moving me in the right direction. As opposed to going, something I've got really, really good at lately is, this quarter I need to achieve this month I need to achieve this week. My definition of success is one thing, and that might take me 1 hour or it might take me 10 hours, but if I achieve it, tick, and I get energized. Geez, I could do 10 more things. Okay, if I get to them, I'll order them in whatever sequence I think most appropriate. But I've definitely got better at going, I don't have to achieve everything now. If I achieve this and I do it really well and I put that structure system in place, the compound effect over time will pay dividends. And it's actually pausing and looking back and going, Jesus. And we found that lately in the mastermind. A couple of the guys won't mind me saying it, Tom and Liz and these guys are actually going, look how far I've come. And they're reaping the rewards of being able to go away for a couple of weeks and not worry about their clinic. They're being able to go home and switch off. So they're the kind of things that we sometimes, when we're in the midst of it, we don't feel like we can achieve.
Yeah, I think it's the phrase, you overestimate what you're going to achieve in a month or a year. You underestimate what you can achieve in 2-3 years. And I think that's where a lot of people are saying now. And I think that's kind of, you probably articulated better in terms of delaying gratification. And I think the biggest thing that we saw when we were doing our strategic planning days, quarterly, monthly, is therapists massively overestimate what they can achieve in a quarter. And it's really good for me, you see the skill improve. And that's one of the big things I see with therapists as they start to work with us more and more, is the quarterly plans when we're reviewing them. The therapists that have been with us for a while, they're clear, they're concise. There's one or two things setting themselves up for success. The therapists that just start with us, they're essentially going to try and get a year's work done in 90 days.
It's a bit like I learned it from a physio who actually John Hartley. I crossed over with him when I started working in sports. But he was saying there was a guy in, there was an injury, a hamstring injury, and he said to me, it's probably a 4-week injury. He turns to the player and he goes, we're looking at 6 to 8 weeks. So he got back week 3 to 4 and it was all high fives. John's a great guy. So what I've kind of brought that principle into is we do need to have a plan and be aggressive in our growth in certain times. But if we give ourselves a bit of slack, but if we actually achieve what we set out to do and we aim for to try and achieve and do it really well, we'll get energy from achieving that, as opposed to being overwhelmed by trying to do multiple things.
Yeah. It's all about building habits, isn't it? About collecting these small little wins, progress, not perfection. And then you develop the habit of winning. I think that's really, really important. So to bring it back on this roadmap to freedom, the first thing we want to look at is our vision. Okay. The next thing we need to understand is how are we currently spending our time? Okay. Next thing, what's the next big thing for you there, Paddy? So we've looked at vision, time review. What's the next big thing that we need to look at? And again, I suppose within our vision, we've got our vision for the business, but also our definition of success.
So yeah, definition of success, how we're spending our time, where we want to go to. So our point A, where we want to go in our next step. So I'd break that down into what's the first thing that I need to achieve and what's the time and resource that I need to allocate towards achieving that.
Yeah. So another way we could say that is what's the gap, essentially. Yeah. So it's a bit like a treatment plan. Yeah. Here's where I want to get to. Point B, point A, here's where I am currently. And I think point A, when I look at that and I go, okay, we're at point A, we're at point B, we want to get to point B, what's the gap? Okay. And I think when we go into point A, that's where the numbers start to become really important, because we have to understand the numbers in our business to actually understand where we are currently. And very often, the issue I think that causes a lot of anxiety and overwhelm is therapists talk about point B, like we spoke on previous podcasts about achievements. I will be happy when I achieve this, this, and this. And you know as well as I do that when they achieve that, they will not be happy. Okay, because you're setting yourself up for failure. That's just the way we're hired. We're always going to want more. So the trick in all of this is to get from A to B, but to have your definition of success along the way. Okay, the first thing we need there is we need to understand where we are currently without emotions. And then the next thing we need to understand is the numbers at point A. What does the numbers look like at point B? And I think taking the emotion out of the decision making and starting to see the gap, then we can get the brain actually starting to problem solve. And there's a lot of happening subconsciously when you go through that exercise to freedom, because now what you're doing is you're aligning subconsciously, you're setting the reticular activating system. You should be able to see your vision super clear. In 5 years' time, my coach said this to me the other day. Where do you want to see yourself in 5 years' time? You need to be super, super clear on that. Okay. And again, you may take 2 steps forward, you may take 1 step back. That's all fine. But you know the direction that you're going. Have I got a clear vision? And then what does the metrics look like? Okay. Then we can really establish the gap and then we can start to make this a little bit more practical. Whereas I think a lot of therapists, if we don't do the numbers but with the vision, it just gets a little bit airy-fairy, and notoriously we start to get overwhelmed. Back to your point, Paddy, of what do I start with?
Yeah, and I think it helps us to make better decisions. That's one of our biggest learning over the last 18 months, I'd say, is having the numbers and taking the emotion out of it and going, here's A, here's B. How do we bridge that gap and what does success look like for that? And the other thing you touched on there was that subconscious mind, but it actually helps you to make better decisions. It reduces some of that emotional reactive piece. But what I found myself over time was actually making better decisions because you're clear on where you need to go to. You have some steps along the way, but it's actually the ability to say no to certain things. So if an opportunity arises, you might say, well, actually, hang on, it doesn't fit in where I need to go now. I'm zoned in on achieving this, and I need this therapist. So it might be that you get this super duper therapist who's going to come into your world and do this thing, and you're going, it's a great opportunity, but actually I'm going to say no because I'm fixated and focused on getting to the next stage here because that fits in with my plan. So I think that's some of the practicalities of it.
That's outstanding. A lot of time, and I'll be honest with you, that's some. I'll put my hand up. It's a skill I'm trying to learn to be a lot better
Yeah,
at. Is saying
yeah,
no, and like the professional sports side of it, like I know for a fact. And again, this probably alludes to the definition of success. This business and my clinic could be a lot further on now if I had said no to some professional sports opportunities. But on the other hand, it's getting the balance. And one of my business coaches, who I used to work with a few years back, he gave me a really good balance in this. He said, "Look, yeah, you might delay gratification in terms of the growth of where the business is going, but also life's about experiences." And he said, like the World Cup, like don't worry if the clinic or the academy isn't where it needs to be or where it should be, because I'm going to remember Japan, I'm going to remember Australia in 2017, France, all of these memories and experiences. They're with me for life, and I think that's the big thing that we need to go back to our definition of success with as well. Is it's the cliches, and you can't take the money with you when you're gone as well. So it's really about getting that balance, and that's where I think the definition of success is really important there.
yeah, yeah. I think, look, Dave, at the end of the day, you have those memories now, but it also develops you as a person. So you come back having been in different environments, seeing different cultures, and any time when I've been involved in this world, you've come back, there's always how you've evolved as a person. Because the most important investment is in ourselves. So by doing the program, what we also often think, people come into the program, the mastermind, and they think, okay, well, I'm investing this in my business. Well, you're actually investing in yourself, because these are the skills that you'll have that if you want to open another clinic, or if it carries over to other industries as well, because the principles, as we're finding over time, are the same. So actually what you're doing is investing in yourself and building a skill set that you're going to have forevermore. So that's something to remember as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that a really good point as well, Paddy, that's kind of alluding to that as well, is on your journey and this journey, and I want to set expectations to therapists now. And this has happened to myself, especially with both businesses, to be honest, that as you grow, you will have setbacks. And this is why it's really important that we get these bits right to minimize the impact. No matter when you're growing, there's always time. And I heard a really good thing from somebody. I can't remember exactly what it was. And he was telling a story about a big investor. And when he looks to invest in entrepreneurs or whoever it is, business owners, he always asks them, what was the biggest mistake that you made in your business? And if somebody hasn't made that big mistake yet, he won't touch them, because everybody's going to go through a point where we're going to fuck up and we're going to mess up and we're going to make a mistake. And if you're that raw and green and you haven't made any mistakes, then that's a dangerous place to be. And that's what you're saying there, Paddy, just reminded me that the skills that you get, the lessons that you learn when you come through the other end of this journey, the map isn't the terrain. There's going to be ups and downs getting from point A to point B, and you will get pushed back a step, but the skills that you learn, you have them for life.
I think, I don't know, we're probably, it's relevant to what we're chatting about, but like, it's like the Instagram thing of, if we keep looking at this person who's a health business or business person who does this thing and it's constantly perfect, good luck. Often, as we talk about, it's like the business that we look under the bonnet, we go, it's an absolute shit show underneath there. And I've made some massive mistakes, but I'm better for it. And that's part of creating that community within the group, is that, okay, we're just trying to speed up. And what you tend to find with healthcare practitioners is, after the initial, I can't share anything, we're actually all caring and empathetic people, and we actually want to help each other out and expedite the process. So yeah, beware. I think the message there is, beware people who've never made a mistake, because that doesn't happen. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
It's about mitigating and reducing the likelihood of it to happen, or mitigating the impact, flipping it and saying it's a learning narrative and you won't make that mistake again, or you'll be better for having made it.
absolutely. So now we've set expectations. You understand point B, where you want to go. You've got a clear vision. You understand point A, and you understand what your definition of success is and what you're willing to tolerate to get there. Because I think that's really important as well, is when you set goals, Am I willing to do the work? Am I willing to tolerate a little bit of discomfort in order to achieve that? Or do I want to get there a bit slower and achieve more definition of success? And there's no right or wrong with that. Okay. And then you have to be aware that there will be setbacks. You're not going to probably get it all right. That's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. We all do it. Okay. So that's your numbers piece. That's really going to help you with the numbers on side of that. The next bit, obviously, if you want freedom, is you're going to need people as well. Okay. So now that we understand where we're going to go, we've mapped out point A, where we are in terms of numbers, and that could be your P&L, it could be other volume of patients. We've mapped out point B, which is where we want to get to achieve our vision. Again, like a number for me was 220 patients, okay, a week. That was a number that I was optimizing for a long time, okay? Then we have to break that down into the resources that we need. So in order to achieve that clinic, in order to hit that volume of patients, service those people, what are the people that I need in order to achieve that? And also align to my definition of success. Because again, I made a decision intentionally in this business, in the online business, where as you're scaling a business, big team and all of this, that wasn't for me at a certain point. Okay. So then I've changed the mode of business that I'm in now. Okay. It's a smaller team again, and it's much, much more aligned to my definition of success. So understanding, first of all, the numbers, the volume that you need. The next step to achieve freedom is understanding the people that you're going to need in order to achieve those numbers. Paddy, is there anything to add on to that?
I think we touched on it in recent episodes where it's being analytical about, okay, who do I need to bring into my world? And at the end of the day, if we to use the phrase, people are the assets that are going to drive the energy to allow you to get to the next level. So it's a case of, am I right to hire? So if I'm going to avoid this burnout and find a balance, what does the business and what do I need? Do I need someone to take those administrative tasks off my plate? Okay. Am I finding that I'm finished my clinic at 8, I'm sitting at home 10, 11, 12 o'clock doing my notes, trying to send messages, do this kind of stuff. Is there a hire there that is required if I do my time review from an admin point of view? Did the numbers back that up that will allow and is warranted within the business? And that will allow you freedom. So in essence, you're hiring someone to free up time to allow you to ascend to the next level or the next iteration or version of yourself. Be that seeing people more clinically, reducing clinical caseload, ascending into the head physio role, into the CEO role, or whatever that version might be. But that's individual to each person. So I think that's the key bit, is that the right person coming on board is oxygen within the business that will allow you to evolve to the next version of yourself.
Absolutely, definitely. And I think if you get that wrong, that's probably where the setbacks that we were alluding to in the last step usually happen. It's usually going to be the people. That's probably going to be the biggest setback, which is why we've covered obviously in the previous episode as well about attracting and retaining top therapists and admin, which is going to be really important. So people is critical. What people are you going to need? Again, you're very good at talking about this, Paddy. Accountability. What accountability are they going to need? What's their definition of success? What's their definition of done, essentially, in terms of they're hitting what we need to hit? So we start to look at time, energy, resources. So we know the numbers, we know the people that we're going to need eventually. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then it comes down to the systems. What are the systems that we're going to need in order? Because systems scale, so to speak. Okay. Our systems are your savior. What are the systems that we're going to need in order to achieve that? So again, we can now start to talk a little bit about the patient journey. Okay. What are the key things that we need to do? Every business, every clinic needs to do 5 things. We need to find people. We need to speak to people. We need to sell to people. We need to fulfill, okay, and actually do what we said we were going to do. And then we need people to return again. Okay. So in terms of new injuries, or we need to retain them for yoga, Pilates, whatever it is. Okay. So along that patient journey, we're going to need systems for all of those things so that we can protect the customer journey. We can protect quality of care. Okay. Then also on top of that, we're going to need financial systems. Okay. And within the patient journey, you could argue there's operational systems. Okay. Strategic planning is going to be another one. We're going to have to be systematic with that. And then I think the other thing then kind of overlaying all of that is the clinic owner mindset. because you are the one driving the proverbial bus in terms of you're the one making the decisions on a day-to-day basis. And it can be very overwhelming. I mean, the last 2 weeks for me, the amount of decisions that I've had to make, and alarms going off in the house, and it's the hottest week of the year, and do we bring an aircon unit in, or is it just because it's a one-off, it's a heat wave? Loads and loads of decisions. So I think it's the ability to be able to handle those things. And whether you like it or not, as a clinic owner, you are going to get presented with problems every single day. And it's your job as a skill is to have the mindset to be able to overcome and tolerate these things. You do tolerate, you do desensitize to them in terms of developing the mindset and the skills to solve problems. Is there anything I've missed there, Paddy?
No, I think the clinic owner mindset is huge. So I know in that single clinician training, there's a huge piece around that, because often it is our mindset and we struggle to evolve to the next level. I just jotted something down when you were chatting there, Dave, about a phrase that a kind of mentor of mine always talked about is good people can operate a poor system, but poor people can wreck a great system. So I think that's a really important thing to remember, but also is the systems, they take time. So what you've described there is the kind of, all the different elements of it. And we break that customer journey down into 5 key components. As we talked about in the previous episode, often as clinic owners, we will have gone through it. So even if it's just to start with, it's a matter of recording what happens in your business at the moment. Okay, so that if someone wants to pick it up, they would have an understanding of how that works. And then we get to a level where we try and put it into like an SOP or a process. And that's version 1.0. And every year it'll evolve. But something that we do in the mastermind, and sometimes what you'll find is we stress test those systems. Well, what if this person left? What if this thing happened? And that's how you build more robust systems. Because at the end of the day, as I touched on there, people are mad and they can do strange things, where if they're given a clear process, they're more likely to comply with that. And if you don't have a good system that someone can follow, you will end up getting dragged back into it. And I think you touched on it there, Dave, with the new building that you're in, etc. And I've only started to experience, I probably did experience, but I wasn't constantly aware of it, of this decision fatigue piece of you get to the end of the day, end of the week, and you just go, fuck, I've made so many decisions here. And as you go up levels, there may be as many decisions, you're just more selective, but they're often bigger decisions with bigger consequences. And if we're not able to understand the second order and third order consequences of decisions that we're making, we're more likely to run into problems. And if we're dragged back in because that person wasn't booked in properly, or that thing didn't happen, we need to ascend and move above that. And we rely on our systems for that.
Absolutely. And in full disclosure, September, I've got time in my diary to completely review all of our systems in the clinic now again. And I've actually hired a specific coach as well to coach me on that, because I'm big into practicing what we preach, to get an objective view that's not emotionally attached to the business. Because I want to look at the key systems that we have. We need to update all of those in the clinic, and also in the academy, to create that world-class customer experience. We've obviously been working a lot behind the scenes in the academy as well, in terms of stuff that I'm building, which I'm not prepared to share just quite yet, but that's going to help our therapists. It's going to help the clinic owners, the trained clinicians, all of those things as well. But it's an evolving process. So it's not a case of you build the systems and it's done. So again, I'm on my journey now to the next chapter has just begun, but we're constantly evolving the systems. And I think that's the big thing that people need to understand is, it's very easy to sell you the dream of, you're just going to do this, this, and this, and everything's going to run smoothly. There's always going to be problems in your business. It's the ability to get the people to solve most of the problems so that you can just solve the things that need to be solved, which is going to be really important. And then obviously the numbers are going to tell you as well if people are actually solving the problems, because the numbers are going to tell you if there's symptoms in the business that the problems haven't been solved.
I think with the systems piece, Dave, it's understanding that I definitely get such energy from looking back and reviewing one system and going, okay, I've got something. Just a couple of tweaks on that for the moment. We do, but they do need to evolve. But once you have something down and something recorded that is reproducible, the reassurance that you get from that by knowing there's a process is huge. And it is, the guys will tell you, who are in the program will tell you that you look back and you go, okay, a couple of tweaks on that, or I've evolved, or the system has evolved where I need to change that process, but I have a basic framework to work from. So don't get overwhelmed. Just record what you're currently doing, look at it, and go, okay, well, actually, that could be better because I'm having a consistent problem where the patients can't find the clinic. I'm just going to use that example. Okay, what system I need to put in place? You need to make sure there's a Google Maps pin and the reminder, or they get a phone call the day beforehand to check they can access. So they're the little things that from a micro level that can help to reduce some of the stressors on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more these things that you get in place, my whole goal is with the power of these systems is your therapists and your admin, they don't need to make decisions. As brutal as that sounds, the systems should eliminate a lot of decisions that your team have to make. Because if they have to make a decision, there's a chance that they'll make the wrong decision, as brutally as that sounds. Now, again, we still want our therapists to think and our admin people to think and problem solve, but we don't want them to get decision fatigue. And that's what systems are really good. It's a bit like these podcasts, okay? I've got a system for this podcast now, where I literally open a Word doc, bang, 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 and I follow that and I don't have to think. I just follow the system, and it saves me energy, okay? And I can give that to somebody, an assistant, and then they can do it, okay? But I do it for the first few, okay? And I think that's one of the biggest things, just on systems maybe, Paddy, to finish, is I think a lot of people, when they give other people the system to create, then it's almost suboptimal. So I think there's a big value in you doing it first, mapping out the system, and then giving it to somebody else, or better still, you get your admin person, if you have staff now, map out the system of how it should be done. So now you're assessing how they think it should be done. You do your version, and then you see where's the mismatch in communication. I know that's something that we do a lot in the mastermind is give the admin to create it first, and then you fill in the gaps. But you need to be able to do the actual system first, so you know what's the most efficient way. And you will be amazed at some of the common sense stuff that you take for granted is being done, and it's not being done, and it's being done a different way. Why are you doing it that way? Because that's how I was trained. X taught me how to do it like that when I first started, and you're just like, oh my god. So it's scary.
So it goes back. It goes back to that, and like I say, it's really powerful. Just to reinforce that is, if you're going to put in place something, get the person who's ultimately going to be responsible to come up with their thought processes on it, because actually can iron out a lot of the misperceptions or misunderstandings. Because as you say, people do things, they've just done it like that for years. I know, and
it's always been done like that. Yeah, that's the
why?
thing. And they're all jokes aside, these are the inefficiencies in the business. Then we talk about effectiveness, which is the therapist's ability to generate revenue, and the efficiencies in the business. And the admin team the efficiency percentage is very important there, because they need to make sure that the therapist diaries are full. But also we want to be able to generate as much revenue from our admin team and making sure that they're efficient. And all of these key things, systems, people, numbers, they're the three big things that we really need to be in place for freedom. We've got the vision at the top of it, and then wrapped around it, we've got the clinic owner mindset as well in terms of that. So I hope that was helpful this week in terms of kind of demystifying freedom. If you want to go from burnt out to balance, you need to have clear numbers, you need a clear vision, you need the right people, and you need the right systems. And if you get those things in place, then things can change very, very, very quickly for you.
Yeah.
Paddy, thank you very much. We'll leave it there for today, and another great episode. And we will see you in the next episode of Building a Go-To Clinic that gives you happy patients, happy staff, high profits, and freedom for you as the go-to clinic owner. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you'd like a free copy of my Head Physio Systems 6-step checklist that I use to personally audit my own therapists, to make sure that they can keep patients progressing even when the pain is eased, so that we can ethically increase our patient numbers, our revenues and referrals, head over to www.thegotophysio.com/checklist and I'll get that sent straight over to you. That's it for this week. I'll see you in next week's show.